Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking something I honestly found absolutely fascinating. We're diving into a structural analysis of Surah 49 from the Quran, also known as Al-Hujurat. But we're looking at it through a very specific lens today. We're viewing it as a historical and sociological blueprint for advanced community building. Whether you're into sociology, information networks, or ethical philosophy, it turns out this text offers an incredible, deeply layered architecture for how to hold a society together.
So it begs the question, how do you actually design a society that's immune to the kind of viral misinformation and tribalism we literally see every single day? It's incredibly relevant right now, isn't it? Well, what the source material suggests is that a society's integrity relies heavily on two things: how it processes information and how its members treat each other on a micro level. It's not just about the shared rules they claim to follow. Okay, let's dive into this structural cascade. We'll be zooming out layer by layer, starting with designing an ethical society, then verifying the data stream, preventing internal social erosion, dismantling tribalism and hierarchy, and wrapping up with submission versus true belief.
Section 1. Designing an Ethical Society. The vertical boundary. And this brilliantly illustrates our starting point at the very top layer. The text argues that any functional community first needs to establish a vertical boundary. We're talking foundational restraint, clear boundaries, and proper comportment toward a leadership and revelation. This table maps out 5 distinct rhetorical movements, proving the text is a highly structured, sequential architecture. It moves from outward protocol and reverence straight into epistemological discipline, meaning how we handle information. Then it shifts to interpersonal justice, expands out to universal human dignity, and finally lands on internal transformation. You simply cannot have those later stages without establishing the first one. Now, what's completely fascinating here is the linguistic anchor used in the text. It's the Arabic root word qdm, which means to put forward or proceed. The text uses this root to establish its core transgression right out of the gate, overstepping proper boundaries. This literally sets the epistemic frame for our entire explainer. Before society can function at all, its members must practice absolute humility and restraint. You cannot presume to exceed your station or speak over established authority. That foundational respect is the prerequisite for everything else.
Moving on to Section 2, verifying the data stream. Epistemic caution in the network. Once that vertical boundary of respect is set in stone, a community has to protect its data streams from false reporting. In any network, information is power, right? But unverified information is basically a toxin. The text uses the root byn, meaning to make clear, separate, or verify. This is a strict operational command. The text explicitly says that if an unverified source, referred to here as a FOSIC, brings news, this root demands a systematic verification process. It's an absolute mandate to pause and validate before you execute any action. Think of it as a 7th century mandate for rigorous fact-checking. It's a built-in gating mechanism to stop reactionary damage based on volatile perception. Because if you don't pause to verify, the text warns that you might, quote, strike a people out of ignorance. The consequence of bypassing this epistemic protocol isn't just a minor oops moment. We're talking about causing actual material harm to a collective. And the text makes sure to note that doing so inevitably results in deep, systemic regret. So, we've filtered the data. Fantastic, but let's be totally realistic for a second. What happens when verified conflicts still pop up within the community network? Because, let's face it, even with perfect information, human friction is completely inevitable. We need horizontal structural safeguards. Which brings us to Section 3. Preventing internal social erosion. Horizontal preservation. Let's move to and see how this builds. To prevent social erosion, the text shifts to community ethics, focusing heavily on restoring the societal bond through fair arbitration and justice. It gives us this rapid-fire sequential checklist of prohibited microaggressions that destroy community integrity from the inside out. It explicitly forbids mockery, defamation, offensive labeling, unwarranted suspicion, and finally spying and backbiting. These aren't just bad manners, folks. The text treats them as active destabilizers that erode mutual trust and fracture the community.
And the language used here? It's incredibly visceral. Look at the root LMZ. It refers to driving a wedge or pointing out defects. But here's the catch. The text phrases it as defaming yourselves. It treats the entire community as one single biological body. Defaming another person is structurally equivalent to self-mutilation. And the metaphor for backbiting?
It describes it as covertly consuming the dead flesh of your own brother. I mean, wow. It is meant to evoke absolute visceral disgust, underscoring that attacking someone's reputation behind their back is literally a parasitic consumption of the community's own body.
Section 4, dismantling tribalism and hierarchy, the universal scale. All right, so we've cleaned up the internal community hygiene. Now we zoom way out to the macro level, the universal scale. Here, the text attempts a universal deconstruction of inherited biological hierarchies. It does this through a striking verse, Ayah 13. It says, "We created you from male and female, and made you into nations and tribes to know one another." This reduces all biological origins to a simple binary split, and it frames the existence of vast human diversity, all those nations and tribes, not as a reason for exceptionalism or caste systems, but purely as an information field. Diversity is designed as a tool for cognitive discovery, for mutual recognition. It's a feature, not a bug. It's meant to prompt connection, for sure, not stratification. So if race, lineage, and tribalism are completely dismantled as measures of worth, what takes their place? The text introduces a single, democratized metric, Taqwa. This translates to structural safeguarding and deep ethical awareness. To put it simply, it means your worth is strictly based on your individual ethical accountability. It is an acquired metric. The only valid scale of human honor is how you objectively conduct yourself. You aren't born with it, you earn it.
And finally, Section 5, submission versus true belief, the taxonomy of realignment.
Which brings us to the climax of this entire explainer. We've looked at this massive external structure, verifying data, banning mockery, dismantling racism, but the text reveals an ultimate bait and switch. All of this external structure means absolutely nothing without internal psychological security. The text directly juxtaposes two concepts. On one side, Islam, representing outer submission, basically a superficial socio-political capitulation. On the other side, Iman, representing deep, unshakable, internal psychological security and faith. The text uses an example of desert dwellers who claim, "We believe," but the response fatly rejects this, telling them, "No, actually scratch that, say, we have submitted," because true belief, Iman, hasn't actually entered your hearts yet. It's a profound linguistic demotion, distinguishing between just following the rules and actually being transformed by them. So, the crucial point is understanding what prevents that internal transformation. The text identifies a specific root, RYB. This signifies a type of doubt that triggers deep internal anxiety and hesitation. Specifically, it's the kind of hesitation that stops you from taking decisive action. True Iman, true internal security, just cannot coexist with cognitive instability. It requires non-skeptical commitment, backing up your beliefs with the active expenditure of your resources and yourself. Synthesizing this entire structural cascade, we arrive at a truly powerful equation. Rigorous information processing plus strict social hygiene equals community integrity. You absolutely need the operational blueprint to verify data and stop microaggressions, yes. But you also need that genuine inner transformation where individuals replace hesitation with unwavering ethical commitment. It's external safeguards and inner truth working together. I want to leave you with this final thought based on that ultimate distinction the text makes. Look at the structures you participate in, your workplace, your community, your society. Are you merely complying with the outer rules? Or have you truly internalized the deep ethics required to actually sustain it? Because, there's a massive difference between just existing in a society and being the foundation that keeps it standing. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.